Hi, welcome to this demo of IBM Spectrum Protect version 8.1.15 and the next tech preview for our OpenSnap Store Manager, also known as Ossm. Now, Ossm allows you to store Spectrum Protect Plus data directly into the Spectrum Protect directory container storage pools. And so in this demo, we're going to show how you prepare the Spectrum Protect server to receive the data from the Spectrum Protect Plus server. We'll then show you how on the Spectrum Protect Plus side, you'll go through and register that Spectrum Protect server and container storage pool, how you'll set up a service level agreement to do those backups, and then we'll actually do a backup of a virtual machine. And then after that backup completes, we'll go about doing some different restores. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to James Damgar to take us through this demo.
Hello everyone, my name is James Damgar with the IBM Spectrum Protect development team, and I'd like to show you today how to install and configure OpenSnap Store Manager with your Spectrum Protect server. Assuming that you've expanded the installation package, you should have an install script here, which will launch Installation Manager. You'd want to run this as root on your Spectrum Protect server system. This launches IBM Installation Manager. On this particular system, we already have the Spectrum Protect server installed. So we want to select to install OpenSnap Store Manager, which should be the last item on the list here. Give it an installation directory. All of the usual options are present. The defaults should work fine for most people. Click Finish to complete the installation. So this actually lays down all of the files related to OpenSnap Store Manager on the Spectrum Protect server system. From here, we want to make sure that the Spectrum Protect server is running. For the next step, we want to go into optively tsm O.S.S.M bin and run O.S.S.M cfg.bin. This will launch a configuration wizard GUI for OpenSnap Store Manager. What you'll want to select is to create a new O.S.S.M instance if this is your first time using OpenSnap Store Manager. You want to give it your IBM Spectrum Protect server instance user. In this case, we're using tsminst1. And then you can select a port for OpenSnap Store Manager to listen on the Spectrum Protect server. The default of 3337 should generally work. Next, you want to give the server IP or fully qualified domain name for a connection for O.S.S.M to the SP server. In this case, since it's all running on the same system, we can input localhost. Next, you need to input an administrator that has system class level authority. This admin is used temporarily to help set up some of the OpenSnap Store Manager functions. A background administrator is actually created for you. So this is a one-time use of this administrator. So I'll enter in the admin name and password. Select the port that the Spectrum Protect server is listening on, 1500 in this case, and then hit configure. And this should just take a few moments. What actually occurs here is the OpenSnap Store Manager software is configured. A Linux service is created for you for O.S.S.M, and a registration token is generated for use with Spectrum Protect Plus. So at this point, the configuration is done. An O.S.S.M registration key is presented here. So what you'll want to do is actually copy and paste this key to a clipboard for later use with the Spectrum Protect Plus GUI. This is the key that's used to initiate communication between SPP and SP. So at this point, we'll hit next. The configuration wizard tells you that it's created a service in Linux for you, as well as opened the 3337 port on the Red Hat firewall. So at this point, I can actually do a systemctl status O.S.S.M on the Spectrum Protect server system, and we now see that we have a running service for OpenSnap Store Manager. At this point, we can check to see if the O.S.S.M service is healthy and running. We do a systemctl status O.S.S.M, and we see that it's running here in an active state. So at this point, we can navigate over to the Spectrum Protect Plus UI. We can log in. Now to use Spectrum Protect Plus with OpenSnap Store Manager, the first thing you'll want to do is add the O.S.S.M instance as a storage component. So we have a few sites to choose from. I'm going to use this site production to deploy the storage into. So we go down to the O.S.S.M tab, click on Add O.S.S.M. We'll enter in the IP or host name, fully qualified domain name of the system where the Spectrum Protect server and O.S.S.M is configured and running. We'll select our desired site. In my case, I'll pick production. We want to input the port that O.S.S.M is listening on. So in our previous configuration step, we used the default 3337. That's also the default here. And then that registration key that was generated at the end of the config wizard, we'll enter that in here as well. Click next. It'll then show you a filtered list of directory container storage pools that you can use for O.S.S.M. In this case, we'll select this pool and then finally hit submit. So now the O.S.S.M storage server, that being our Spectrum Protect server with the O.S.S.M service running, has now been added as a storage location for Spectrum Protect Plus. Now to use O.S.S.M for VMware backups, the next thing we'll need to do is deploy a Vadp proxy, which also deploys O.S.S.M proxy code as well. So we'll navigate over here to the system configuration Vadp proxy page, hit register proxy, enter in the host name or IP of our desired proxy system. Click on get server key. This goes and fetches a RSA key from that system that you can use to manually verify that it's the system you think you're talking to. You'll select a site. Now, what you want to do here is select the same site that the O.S.S.M storage was added to, in this case, production, and then input a username and password. Now, the username and password you provide here is a operating system user on this proxy system that has passwordless sudoer permissions. And there is some guidance in the documentation for the rights and the initial setup that this user must have. So I've prepared this user ahead of time on this proxy system. This is a similar step that you would have taken deploying a Vadp proxy in the past. So the same requirements apply. Hit next here and submit. And this will take a few moments. What this is doing is installing both the Vadp proxy software on this system as well as the O.S.S.M proxy software. The Vadp proxy software allows the system to communicate with VMware to do backup and restore, as well as the O.S.S.M software allows it to perform backups and restores from your Spectrum Protect server storage. And it usually takes a couple of minutes or so. All right, and after the proxy software is successfully installed, the proxy will show as enabled here with a box for O.S.S.M being enabled as well. So at this point, we're ready to take backups, but what we need is a SLA, a service level agreement, defined here in Spectrum Protect Plus that will point to this storage. So if we navigate to Manage Protection Policy Overview, you have your list of SLA policies here. What I can do is hit Add SLA Policy. You select a O.S.S.M SLA type for the policy type. Click Next and give it a name. Call this Production SP for now. I'll want to disable all schedules. This functionality allows you to schedule backups on a regular basis. For now, I'll have that disabled, and I'll select my target site as production. This list will actually be filtered to only sites that contain O.S.S.M storage within them. Click Next and Submit. So this has created my SLA. Now, if I want to add virtual machines for protection to this SLA, I'll go to Manage Protection, Virtualized Systems, VMware. Now I've already added a VMware vCenter Server Kingsman to this Spectrum Protect Plus instance, and catalog has already run to discover all of the VMs that could be protected there. So from this interface, I'm able to actually filter down to individual VMs and templates. I could also filter by tags and categories, or by particular hosts or clusters or data stores when I want to select VMs. In this case, I'm just going to select some VMs directly to back up. So in this case, I will select this one VM, hit Select SLA Policy. I'll want to associate it with my production SP SLA that I just created. Hit Save. A virtual machine can be associated with more than one SLA at a time. For example, if you're backing up the VM to both vSnap storage as well as O.S.S.M storage. So at this point, if I go to Jobs and Operations, Schedule, the act of associating that virtual machine to that SLA has caused SPP to generate a schedule for me with VMware underscore the name of the SLA. So the first time that you add a VM to a SLA, SPP will automatically generate the schedule for you. Since I had scheduling set to disabled, this will not run automatically, but I can kick it off here manually. So I'll do that here to start a backup. Once I set the schedule to running, I can go over to the Running Jobs tab, and it'll appear here. Clear my filters, and then I can see all the messages related to the job as it proceeds. And this panel will automatically refresh, or you can refresh it manually. So no previous backups have been performed for this VM, so a full backup will be started. And I can actually navigate over to the Progress tab, and once the VM has started data movement, you'll start to see a progress indicator here where you can monitor throughput, and this will update periodically. All right, and then sometime later, we can go back to the job history pane of the Spectrum Protect Plus GUI and view our completed backup job. So in the Progress tab, we can see that the backup for the virtual machine completed and get some information about its throughput, when it started, when it ended, its elapsed time. We can also dive into the job log, look at more details about the backup job. Now to create a restore job, what we'll want to do is click on this Create Job button to the top right of the Jobs and Operations page. We'll click on Restore, VMware, and then it'll give you a list of resources for virtual machines that have been backed up. You can search for a virtual machine up here or drill down in the navigation pane here. So I'm going to drill down and select this virtual machine. You can select more than one VMs at a time if you wish to do a multi-VM restore. I'll just select one for now and hit Next. For type of restore, you can select on-demand or recurring. On-demand is a one-time only restore. Recurring is if you want to schedule multiple restores to occur on some kind of regularity. So I'll do a on-demand restore. It'll then show you all the restore points for this VM. If I had selected more than one VM, I'd be able to select separate restore points for each VM to restore concurrently. So in this case, I'll select this restore point and hit Next. You can choose where you want the VM deployed to in terms of the host in VMware. I'll just go with the original host and allow OS to determine IP configuration. You can also edit the IP configuration along the way if you wanted this VM to immediately be able to connect to a network in VMware. I'll select Clone Restore. This will actually stream the virtual machine restore to VMware and make a copy in VMware infrastructure. So I'll give it a unique name. Then a review page will show you all of your selections, and I can hit submit. The restore job is now going to be running on the running jobs panel. It'll appear here, and I can set this to display the latest messages by sorting by time. And this page, as with backup, will automatically refresh every few seconds, or you can hit the little refresh icon down here at the bottom. So you'll be able to see all the steps that the restore job takes. First, it mounts the associated volume to your proxy system, selects a proxy, mounts the volume there, and then starts up the streaming restore. So this VM is relatively small, so it should only take a couple of minutes. So you see it's copying the VMDK files for the VM. It's created the VM in VMware. So I'll let this run for a moment. So now the job has finished. If we go to job history, we can view the job and see that it had a completion state of success. And I can look for my VM here. This was the virtual machine I restored. So from here, I can power on the VM or do anything else that I would normally do with a VMware virtual machine. So this is a complete clone restore. This VM has now been copied back to VMware infrastructure and is now independent of Spectrum Protect. Okay, that's pretty much it for the streaming restore.
Great, thank you, James. Be sure to check out the other videos we have on Ossm. One of those videos shows what you see from the Spectrum Protect side when the backups and restores are going on, as well as how the Spectrum Protect Operations Center can work with the Ossm. Okay, with that, thank you very much.